Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live, a special show today where we are talking about, well, what else really? The new lockdowns in England and Scotland that have come into force today. Now, what does this mean to car dealers, though, in a year that has seen so many pressures and challenges? Are we back to square one with these new lockdowns, or is there cause to feel some optimism? Well, that's what we're going to find out in the next 20 to 30 minutes, or however long this show actually lasts. Joining me, as ever, to give a little bit of clarity on what's going on is Nona and Kiril from Lawgistics. Hello, both.
Hello.
Hi, James.
I do feel as though it's slightly like Groundhog Day. We are constantly talking about this topic, but it is a topic that is of huge interest to dealers. How do they actually operate in times of crisis such as this? Now, this is a live show. If you do have any questions about the lockdowns, what they mean and how you can carry on trading, then do pop them into the comments box and we'll do our best to answer them. We've had a lot of questions sent in already, but don't let that stop you from getting involved. Nona, let's just start with a broad topic here. It's probably worth repeating what was announced last night and how the different parts of the UK are affected. Because, of course, you know, it's different in different places, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think for the first time, we are pretty much on the same level across, apart from Northern Ireland dealers who can't do click and collect, but everybody else can. Everybody else has to close. But they're open to do click and collect, and that's it, except in Northern Ireland. So we've got rid of all the different tiers and the different nations doing different things. They might be called, in Scotland, you're on alert levels here, your tiers. I think we're in tier 5, I think, that they've made up last night. I don't know, that's where we seem to have gone back to. So they might all be called different things, but essentially now we're all pretty much at the same level where you've got to close your businesses, but you can do click and collect, click and deliver, except Northern Ireland where you cannot do click and collect, but you can do click and deliver. Yeah.
And Kiril, this has been the saviour of most businesses in 2020. And guess what? It's probably going to be 2021's great saviour as well. Click and collect, click and deliver. Can dealers in lockdown use click and collect and click and deliver services?
Well, at least as far as England goes, so far, certainly yes. But James, remember in the previous lockdown, we were quite optimistic initially, expecting the final regulations to be brought into force. And then when we saw the draft, it threw quite a bit of doubt whether dealers could do click and collect. And it took a good, I would say, probably a week or so to clarify what's really was going on then. But we're exactly in the same situation. We have the announcement from the government and guidelines were pushed out yesterday on the government website. We're still waiting for the final regulations, but I would speculate, but say it's very much likely that yes, dealers will be able to do click and collect. At least what we have now, what the government published yesterday, it's certainly yes, dealers can do click and collect and click and deliver. They can do click and collect if they're responding to orders received distantly. It doesn't say that the orders must be prepaid already. Ready for collection. We'll see whether the final version of the regulations will say anything about this. But as it stands at the moment, certainly yes, click and collect, click and deliver both are fine.
Yeah. Understandably, I've got lots and lots of questions sent in from dealers asking about click and collect. Before I come on to those, Nona, can we just reiterate what the click and collect rules are and what dealers need to make sure that they're doing to stay on the right side of the law?
Yeah, just before I do that, I should mention Scotland really, because interestingly on their website, it says on alert level 4, they can still do test drives and sort of sell cars from their businesses. But that is a hangover from before Sturgeon announced what she did yesterday. Yeah. But at the moment, that is still live on the website. So Scotland might still be slightly different, but that may just be it's not been updated.
Joy of joys.
Who knows? But I just thought I'd throw that out there. Just quickly from there.
Can we just reiterate what the laws are and how dealers can stay on the right side of the law?
Yeah, well, I think pretty much everything now is going to have to be a distance sale because it's not done on premises. I think, as I said before, in the law, you've got 3 types of sales. You've got on-premises sales, obvious stuff where people come and have a look at the car. You've got off premises, which dealers really shouldn't get involved with. That sort of evolved from people selling Encyclopedia Britannica at your house and forcing you to buy, double glazing salesman, etc., etc. So we don't really want to go there. And the other third type of sale is distance selling, which this is going to be because of the rules that we've got in place. So you have to, unfortunately, give your customers 2 weeks to change their mind for no reason whatsoever, the same as if they're ordering a package from Amazon or whatever and they get it, they don't like it. It would be nice if all the consumer law, in fact, had car-specific rules, but they don't. We probably need to do more of an industry to sort of push that, because none of the consumer laws really fit cars. They fit toasters and kettles, but it is what it is. So they have to give the 2 weeks option to change their mind for any particular reason. They have to give certain paperwork, including the rules about how they need to return those goods. And dealers can cover themselves if they give the right terms on the paperwork. And I think we're still giving out our free templates for anybody that is not using those. And that tells the customers that, you know, they get 20 or whatever mileage the dealers want to set. Some bigger dealers, they want to compete with the online companies that are giving 250 miles as a test. A lot of dealers feel that's taking advantage. I have to watch my language. I'm taking advantage. So, you know, we say 20 is plenty. So if you want to give someone a 20 mile, I've got a dealer who does a standard 5 mile test drive loop. He's giving them that same 5 miles to decide whether they want to buy the car or not, because that's all that is. It's just designed for them to test the car as they would in a normal test drive situation. It's not for them to go off for the weekend and come back again and you know, all those other things that sometimes happen. But generally, it's not an issue. But as long as dealers give the right paperwork, that then cuts the customer's time to reject that car at 2 weeks. Because if they don't give the paperwork, they've got a year and 2 weeks to reject it for any reason whatsoever. And again, if you don't give the paperwork and they come back in a year, you might find that you've got to accept rejection and you cannot make a deduction for usage because you haven't got it on the terms that you gave them at the point of sale. So yes, it's a pain, but it works. A lot of our dealers are having a, you know, pretty buoyant time with it. It's, you know, it's something slightly new for a lot of dealers from there, but if you get it right, you can do the sales and protect yourself from consumers that will take advantage, because there will always be consumers that take advantage. That's just the nature of the game.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, we can't stress this point enough, can we? Dealers have got to get their paperwork in order, because, you know, you would like to think that most customers are trustworthy, but if there is a way a customer can get out of rejecting a car, they're going to do it, aren't they? And especially in times of crisis like this, where everybody is really pressurized and doing, you know, working above and beyond, to be let down by not having the right paperwork just undoes all of that hard work, doesn't it? So there's, you know, dealers can go onto Lawgistics website, can't they, and download these templates, can't they?
Yeah, and we've actually just updated them again, because we had a client ring up and they said, oh, I had a client, they wanted to reject the car, but because it says they have to bring it back straight away or within the latest 14 days time, they rang us on day 14, said they want to reject it, but they're not bringing it back till the end of the month because they want to drive around in it. But that's what the law says, so we can't get around that. So we've just adapted that to say you must stop driving it as soon as you report it, that you want to reject it. But, you know, if you've got the pound per mileage or whatever you're going to charge them in there, at least you're going to be able to make a deduction. But that was an example from the off. Our consumer was straight in there. Oh, I've got up to 14 days. No, not really. But we couldn't take that out because that's what the regulations allow the consumers to have. So we've kind of tried to tighten that up a bit as much as we can within what the law allows.
Right. Let's get into the questions, because we've got a huge number have come in whilst we've been talking, but I'll start with the ones that were emailed to me this morning. Question from Pippa. Now, thanks for getting in touch, Pippa. Now, this is a topic that many dealers have asked for clarification. How does, Kiril, I'll come to you on this, sorry. How does click and collect work when we cannot expect or allow customers to collect the vehicle, as they are not allowed to travel for purposes which don't include essential food shopping, medical reasons, or key workers for their jobs. This is a big topic, isn't it, Kiril? I mean, you know, people are being told to stay at home. They can only go out for essential reasons, but click and collect can still carry on. How does that work? I mean, is collecting a car you've paid for online classed as essential?
Well, again, as it stands at the moment, that is fine. What the guidance say, whenever possible, the customers should shop locally, but should is not the same as must or have to. So the guidance makes allowance for customers to travel, I would say, some distance to collect the vehicle they like and they've chosen. The guidance does reflect the position that click and collect, click and deliver is still allowed. So naturally, logically, in consequence, people can travel to collect the goods. Plus, of course, there is another exception, which has just been copied across from the previous lockdown guidances, which says you are allowed to leave your home to fulfill a legal obligation while collect some goods. That is, to fulfill your contractual obligations would arguably come under this exception as well.
Yeah. So I'm sure many dealers they're going to be having conversations with customers over the next few days about this very topic. Yeah. Should dealers be saying to customers may be asking, look, I can't leave the house. Dealers should be saying to them, it's perfectly okay to be leaving your house to pick up a car. Is that what we're saying?
As it stands at the moment, yes. I mean, yeah. the final version of the guidelines will be put to the Parliament tomorrow. We'll see what's in the final draft. But as it stands at the moment, as I say, the guidelines reflect this position that they can collect, they can deliver still allowed.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Pippa has asked two other questions. Nona, it's about servicing. Again, this is another big topic. She says, during the first lockdown, service work was only for key workers. Should we be helping the cause by cancelling non-urgent bookings and not encouraging people to be leaving their homes?
Yeah, that's a bit of a myth. It was never just key workers. I think that was something that people thought helped justify why they were open. Because I think in the first lockdown, there were a lot of curtain twitchers sort of reporting businesses because they didn't really understand the rules. Because, I'm just doing it for key workers. But garages, service, repair, MOT garages, they've always been allowed to stay open and service an MOT, whichever cars, it's not a key worker specific thing.
Yeah.
And that's the same currently. They're still on the list of businesses that can remain open.
Yeah, yeah. And let's just keep with that servicing theme. Another question here. Are service customers allowed to wait and enter the retailer as they were in the second lockdown? It's increasing the risk of transmission for no reason when they can do a key drop and be safe in their own home. Essentially, I mean, are customers allowed to drive to a garage and wait there for their car to be serviced?
They probably can. There's nothing that specifically says they can't, but businesses are under obligation to do everything in the most COVID safe manner possible. So yeah, if you want to do a key drop and those sort of things, they are better options. But there's nothing that specifically says the customer can't wait there. I mean, it's difficult again this time of year. It's going to be cold to wait outside, isn't it? That's not ideal. But you've got to set your business up in the most COVID safe way that you can.
Yeah, yeah. Right, Kiril, Mark has been in touch. He's asking if we have started a deal before midnight today or midnight last night, can we still go ahead and complete? If we have started a deal, if we have started a deal that has to be delivered to a customer, can we still deliver the vehicle? Interesting, isn't it, Kiril? I mean, it's easy to say click and collect is allowed as a blanket rule, but when many dealers apply that to their current circumstances, it can be a bit confusing, can't it?
It can be a bit confusing indeed, but I think in answer to Mark, in those specific circumstances, I mean, click and deliver, yes, it's still allowed. It has been allowed. So as far as it stands, it's still all right. There is no problem with it. An interesting point would have been if click and deliver now isn't allowed, but that's not the case, so let's not go there. So Mark is safe.
Yeah, we've got enough on our plate without the rules changing now, although they could, who knows. Right, Nona, we've got two questions here. Well, two questions, but on the same theme, unsurprisingly. It's about test drives. Now, are home test drives or test drives off-site allowed? I think it's probably worth just clarifying the test drive rules here, really. So what are they?
Yeah, or say if you're in Scotland, and I looked just before we started because I was like, has that not changed? And at the moment, test drives in Scotland seem to be okay, but I wouldn't be surprised if that disappears off the website and that changes. But again, we're open to there. Test drives at home, they're talking about taking the car out, aren't you, and letting them test drive it there. Is that essential? I don't think it's an absolute breach of the rules. Whether, again, that comes under the COVID safe way of doing things on the risk assessment, I think businesses have to look at their COVID risk assessment and decide if that's something they want to do. But personally speaking, if you're going to someone's house anyway, you're going to have contact with them. It's not really increasing the contact for them to have a little drive around the block. Obviously, you don't want them going off miles and causing havoc anywhere. But
driving to Barnard Castle, for example.
Well, yeah, exactly, for the odd eye test or two. Yes, indeed. So, but if it was just a short there, then, it's not a big breach of rules. Remember, this isn't quite the same as March. It's almost being marketed as if it's the same as March, but manufacturing is open now, whereas that wasn't before. There's lots of different things going on. Really, all that's changed from Tier 4 is that the children aren't going to school. And of course, yes. Boris had to find some way of U-turn on that without looking terribly awful Boris-like. So, that we've called it. But it is different to March. So I think we can be a little bit loose, but you've got to do your COVID risk assessment and the businesses have got to decide if that's okay or not. But I don't see that that's outlawed by law at all, because you can do click and deliver, and that could be a normal part of a car sale.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think ultimately it comes down to the dealer's discretion, doesn't it? I mean, if they feel uncomfortable doing it and offering it, or if the customer feels uncomfortable, then don't offer it. I mean, it's unlikely you're going to get pulled over by the police, or there's going to be a curtain twitcher, but who knows? But like you say, it could be factored into the part of the delivery or the handover process, couldn't it? So
and that is clearly allowed, click and deliver. So and that would be the argument. Well, this is what normally happens on a normal click and deliver sale, and we're allowed to do that.
Yeah. We've got another question here from Damien. Put this to you, Kiril. We sold a vehicle last week that someone had viewed and test driven, and they paid a deposit on it. They are collecting on Thursday of this week. Does this still count as click and collect sale and therefore a 14-day cooling off period, or does it fall outside these parameters because the dealer was agreed and the test drive done before lockdown?
Well, that depends when the deposit was paid, really. I mean, if the customer paid the deposit before the car was viewed and taken on a test drive, then I would say very likely distance sale rules will apply. If that was the case, that the customer came down to the premises, took the car on the test drive, paid deposit then it certainly will not be distance sale, so distance sale rules cooling off period doesn't apply. Normally, if it is the case that the deposit was paid over the phone, and then the customer didn't stand the premises to see the car, then it's likely to be a distance sale. So,
right. Brilliant. Okay. Now, again, whilst we've been talking, a ton of questions have come in. A lot of them do repeat topics that we have spoken about, but I think, on today of all days, when there's a lot of confusion, it's probably worth, even if it's areas that we've already covered, it's probably worth covering again. So let me go through these questions, and apologies if you feel as though we've already covered them. Now, this is an interesting one, though, from Norwich Motor Company. I sell e-bikes and wheelchair accessible cars, as well as second-hand cars. Can we operate as normal as a bike and mobility aids? Can they cross-sell? I suppose their question is, because they sell different, they don't just sell cars, can they operate normally or not?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd imagine, I don't know enough, really. I don't know if Kiril knows about the E situation and the mobility side. I don't know. Kiril, what do you say if you had a look?
Well, from what I could see, and again, we will have to wait until the final draft is out. There is no special dispensation for cars, say, adapted for mobility use. So I would say they will have to abide by the general rules as to any other car dealer, because the guidance says about vehicle showrooms, and that covers a broad range of vehicles, not just typical passenger cars.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. we've got a Scottish question here. Well, a question from Scotland. It's not Scottish themed. Can dealers in Scotland still operate outdoor car lots as previously allowed? I'm not aware of that. And again, I suppose it comes down to the Scottish legislation, Scottish rules guidance coming out last night. I'm not entirely sure whether it's accurate or not. But what would be the answer there to Simpson Motors in Dunfermline?
I think currently, it's the same as the test drive question, that is still currently live on the website, that they can do that in Scotland, and they have been doing that all through their level 4. I say whether that will change and whether the website needs updating, we will see in the next couple of days, I think, really. But currently, it looks like that is still okay.
Yeah. A lot of questions here about click and collect, unsurprisingly. Now we've got GK Motors asks, and again, this is a very pertinent question. It just sums up the confusion that is out there, really. If we operate a used car dealership with no service department, can we still operate a click and collect and deliver service? I suppose the answer to that is yes, but there seems to be confusion whether you need to have a servicing operation to remain open or to do business, Nona.
Well,
Yeah, no car dealer. Oh, go on.
no, sorry, James, you carry on.
Yeah, no car dealers. They can remain open even if they don't have a servicing or an MOT. Not open, but open for click and collect and click and deliver. Not open.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, J&I Cars Limited have asked. This is a question that we've already covered, so I'll just answer it. And if I go wrong, then feel free to jump in, Nona and Kiril, and tell me off. But now, when a customer is picking up a car, is the customer still allowed in the showroom to complete paperwork, providing we follow social distancing rules? The answer to that is no, isn't it? I mean, the showroom has to remain closed. That has to be done either at the customer's home or digitally, I suppose, yeah?
It does, but there is a bit in the legislation and the guidance I read this morning that says for people coming to collect, if possible, you shouldn't let them on your premises from there. That's in the Welsh guidance, I think. And that, as I've said before, seems sensible. You know, you can't have paperwork flying around outdoor in the wet and the cold and ridiculous. So I think if you're just letting someone in just at the entrance to sign paperwork and everything else is sectioned off, so it's very clear that your showroom is closed, I personally don't see a problem with that. Again, if it's in your COVID risk assessment from there, and certainly that is reflected in the Welsh guidance for click and collect. Not in our guidance yet. It may come in there, but I think common sense sometimes has to prevail even in these situations. And as long as it's covered in your risk assessment, and the showroom is ostensibly closed so people can't walk in and wander around, I don't see why you can't have a desk near the front and just have a little lobby area for those sort of things. Again, because they're car specific, not many goods are going to have that sort of sale process where there's paperwork to sign, perhaps pre-delivery sheets to sign and finance papers to sign. You know, we've got to be sensible.
Yes. Now we've had a couple of questions on this, and it's something that we've covered in a previous show. And again, it's worth talking about this again because it's a very interesting topic. Now, if you've got a customer turning up, getting their car serviced, for example, and they start to wander around the forecourt or whatever, do you prevent them from doing that, or do you allow them to do that? I mean, what is the rules surrounding a customer looking around a car forecourt?
Yeah, I mean, you should really, ideally, you should have it sectioned off from there, because you don't know if that customer is going to be sort of a mystery shopper from Trading Standards or somebody and who's trying to trip you up, or somebody, you know, because there's people out there with too much time on their hands that will go round and try and do that sort of thing, you know, and cause trouble for businesses from there. So, yeah, really, you need to be doing your best to keep people away so you don't look on any level as if you've got your sort of premises open for business and to do sales.
Yeah. Well, keeping with that theme, a question in from Furlough None. Now, as the showroom and forecourt is closed to customers, do we need to let them collect the car off the site somewhere? So is that on the pavement outside? Is it round the corner? What is it, Kiril?
Well, the guidance says off premises. So whatever premises are allowed to remain open, that is trading premises or public space, if it is COVID safe, then yes. And I suppose here was the confusion about service department stamps. You don't have to have a service department to do click and collect, click and deliver. If you do, it's easier for you because that's obviously part of your business which is allowed to continue trading. So it can be used for collection and delivery, well, collection purposes really. If the dealership doesn't have a service department, as you say, then they're down to using, say, an open car park or somewhere else for the customer to collect the car. That's on the strict interpretation of the guide. I mean, if we adopt more sensible approach, as Nona suggested, then as long as the car showroom itself remains closed, the forecourt is fenced off, then the customer arguably can visit the car dealership premises, say if there's a back office somewhere, to just to complete the paperwork, especially in this cold weather indeed. As long as it's COVID secure and there are measures in place, sanitizers, social distances, etc., that arguably should be permissible.
Right, brilliant. Okay. Now, a question from Robert, again, about click and collect, unsurprisingly. Can we just take a deposit and the customer pays for the car by bank transfer on collection? What are the rules surrounding this, Nona?
Yeah, it's still going to be a distance sale though, because if basically the general rule is if they've not seen the car before they put any money down on it at all, whether that's a deposit or the whole balance or a small or large deposit, it's a distance sale from there. But yeah, there's no problem with taking a bank transfer, and it's safer to do a bank transfer. I had a case yesterday actually where I had a chargeback case because they'd paid on their credit card, but they wanted a refund, they weren't entitled to one. But fortunately for my client, the total for the car was £30,034, and the credit card protection only goes up to 30,000. So he couldn't get his refund through the credit card company. Mm-hmm. But generally, anything between 130,000, if they're paying on a credit card, you know, if there's a problem, they will go off to their credit card company and seek a refund or whatever through there. But yes, the bank transfer is always the best way, I think, to do business for those sort of reasons, really. But yeah, it would still be a distance sale, but it's not a problem to do it that way at all.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Another question from Furlough None here. Now, it's again, it's about distance selling. Now, is it still classed as a distance sale if the customer collects the car from the site and have the opportunity to inspect it before leaving the premises? What do you think, Kiril?
If that's the first time the customer, say the customer attends the premises, first time sees the car, then pays for the car, then that's not likely to, I would say it's not likely to be a distance sale. I mean, it's an argument to make whether it could be potentially off-premises sale, because normal premises will be closed one day. But I would certainly argue that this is temporary dispensation in view of the COVID measures, that it still comes under trade premises. So I think there is a strong argument it won't be a distance sale.
Okay. Nona, now these two questions from two different dealers have come in. They relate to the news that broke today, Rishi Sunak announcing government grants, a one-off grant to survive and to keep business going during this lockdown, particularly in England. Prestige Diesels and Sports Limited and Affordable Cars of Sussex Limited have asked about if these companies are operating click and collect services, can they still take the grant that is offered? Or, you know, can they claim for government support for being closed, as technically the site and forecourt is closed?
Yeah, I haven't seen the ins and outs of that yet. And again, it's one of those things that has just come out. We don't know the detail yet. And as always, the devil is in the detail from there. But I noticed on gov.uk, there is a very handy sort of format. You go in there and you say how many staff you employ, what your turnover is, what your business rates are, and it will give you a list of everything you could be entitled to from there. So that is quite a handy calculator, because there are so many different things going on. And I say this is brand new that Rishi's sort of announced there. But if you use the gov.uk site, that will tell you at least the whole list of things that you could be entitled to as a business. But I haven't seen any of the detail yet on that. We'll probably see that again later. We'll do legal updates on that when it comes out, probably today or tomorrow.
Yeah. Now let's just take a break from click and collect and talk about that other topic which has delighted us during 2020 has been furlough. Now, Kiril, Pickup Truck TV says government website says employees on furlough can take part in training. Any reason why one employee can't train another when both are furloughed? There's lots of ins and outs regarding furlough, isn't there? I don't know if you can provide some clarity there.
That's what a coincidence. We only had a discussion in the office yesterday about what happens if, well, it's okay when someone receives training whilst on furlough, that's pretty agreed. But what happens if someone delivers training whilst on furlough? Is it still allowed? Our opinion is that technically that will be in breach of furlough, because that's one thing when you are receiving training just to keep your skills sharp and keep your knowledge up to date. So when the furlough is over, you can still go back to your job straight away. It's quite a different thing when you're actually delivering training. So you're certainly pursuing that in the course of your employment as such, and certainly for the interest of your employer. So I would say it certainly will not be covered by this exemption. That will be in breach of furlough rules.
Right. Perfect. Okay. Well, let's return to click and collect. Nona, questions just coming from AP Auto Care. If we offer free delivery and take no payment until the customer has seen the car and test driven the vehicle, is that still classed as a distance sale? It's interesting, this, isn't it? Because it's clear people are struggling to understand. Dealers are confused about the rules of distance selling here. So, you know, what can you reply to that?
Yeah, well, if you go back to the beginning where I said there are three types of sale, you've got on premises, which are the standard sales that everybody does all the day, where someone comes, looks at the car, yes, I like that, I'll pay a deposit. That's just a normal sale, so take that out of the way. Distance sale is where they've paid any money before they've looked at the car. That scenario, though, they're going to look at the car, but they're looking at the car at their home, presumably, where it's been delivered. That then falls into the off-premises sales. So it's similar to distance. They get the 2 weeks to change their mind, but it's worse because if you don't do it properly, you can be prosecuted by trading standards. So that is really the thing you want to stay away from. It sounds like it's a nice way to get around the distance sale, but it's not. It actually gets you further in that doo-doo. And you want to avoid going to a person's house and selling there, because then you are sort of under the umbrella of double glazing salesman and Encyclopedia Britannica sort of salesman, where you've gone to someone's house and you forced a product on them. That's not what you're doing, but that's the bit of law that will fall under. So that is why it's stricter than the standard distance sale that most people are now doing.
Yeah. At fear of repeating ourselves, but can I just stick with you, Nona? A question's coming from Elaine. Can you clarify the rules around a conditional sale with distance selling and wanting to reject?
Right, conditional sale as sort of a finance agreement. Anything with finance, I know we've got some clients that do their own finance, which muddies it a little bit, but anything with an element of finance, you need to speak to the finance provider about how they want you to approach that, because technically it depends on the relationship of where you're selling sort of the car to, but that we're going to cover that in the legal update, I think, as well, from there. But generally, if there's an element of finance, talk to who the finance provider is and work that out.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Kiril, can we just talk about collection again? We've had a few questions come in. A few dealers are confused about this. Can customers come in the doorway to complete paperwork? Or do they need to collect the car off-site if it's click and collect? I mean, what is it?
Well, the guidance says, and that's as much as we have at the moment, that collection should be off-premises. Under the previous regulations, previous lockdown regulations, off-premises covered both the car showroom and the forecourt. So technically speaking, the collection will have to be somewhere else, and that is car parking space or just side of the road, wherever it is. But I think I would say, as long as the dealer is sensible and say the doorway If it is a designated collection area, that should be okay.
Perfect. Okay. Hopefully
So the guidance, the guidance at the minute, not the law, but the current guidance just says car showrooms must be closed. Now, the guidance only said that last time, and then the law picked up, car lots and outdoor places as well. But currently what's up there, it says car showrooms. So yeah, they can come on, what would be the forecourt or whatever. I think I would be very happy to argue for a client who got pulled up by trading standards for having a little reception area in their showroom, because, that's where common sense has to apply, I think.
Yeah. There's a question in from Lee here. Again, if I'm sorry, Nona and Kiril, if you feel as though you're repeating yourself, but it's very timely. Lee asks, if a customer pays a deposit over the phone without seeing a car, then when they arrive, the deposit is refunded and they accept the car and pay the full balance. Is it not a distance sale?
That is a possible way around it. If you call that sort of a reservation fee, I wouldn't be calling it a deposit, because that suggests it's a deposit which puts you into a contract. But if you're calling that a reservation fee and that is being refunded, that's fine. The problem you've got with that is at the moment you're only allowed to do click and collect, and click and collect really amounts to a distance sale, whichever way you do it. But normally, if your premises was open and operating as normal, if you take a reservation fee and then refund it and then do the deal on the premises, that's fine. But you've got to remember, in the lockdown, you're not really allowed to do on-premises sales. So again, it's a bit like going to someone's house. Whatever way you do it during this lockdown, you're going to have to give your people the 2 weeks to change their mind because of how the lockdown rules are. But moving forward, when we go back to normal, that's a way to take a deposit over the phone of sorts without it being a distance sale.
Yeah. And funnily enough, GK Motors have just asked a very similar question about customer reservations. So hopefully that answer covers that for you. I suppose just the last thing I just want to reiterate, because we spoke about it quite a long time ago now, it's about getting your paperwork in order. Nona, I just don't know if you just want to just cover that off again, about the importance of dealers making sure they've got their paperwork in order to so there's no comeback for distance selling.
Yeah, just assume that during this period of lockdown, everything you do is a distance sale. We could be able to argue on subtle nuances, but we don't really want to be doing that. Assume everything is a distance sale. And in that case, give them the paperwork, which gives your customers 2 weeks to change their mind. But it also protects you because it cuts the change your mind period off at 2 weeks, because otherwise that will be extended forever. It allows you to make a deduction for every mile they drive after whatever you want to set it, whether that be 5 miles, 20 miles, 250 miles, that's up to you. It puts the onus on the customer to have to bring the car back to you, because we often get dealers on the phone saying, oh, they won't bring the car back. But if you put it in your distance sale paperwork, they have to bring the car back to you. So get the paperwork right, and it'll just protect you, and it'll make your life easier as a dealer if you've got that in order. That's all we can say really to get there. Do it. Just assume everything is a distance sale in this climate. If you want to get around, give us a call and we'll try and talk around it, because that's what we do. We find ways around the laws and little nuances in there. But generally, think that everything is a distance sale. Give them that paperwork so they get 2 weeks, and it protects you as well. And then everybody's hunky-dory, hopefully.
Yeah, right. Perfect way to finish. Perfect words. Treat every sale as a distance sale, and then you can't really go that wrong, I suppose. Nona, Kiril, lovely to have you on. Thank you to everyone who's submitted your questions. Hopefully you've got the answers that you wanted there. We've got through as many questions as we possibly can. I do feel as though we're going to be returning to this very soon, but we'll let you know if we do. But for today, Nona, Kiril, thanks very much for joining us. And until next time, thank you for joining us, and bye-bye.
Thanks, James. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.